Liam Payne didn't think much of the invitation when it first arrived. It was vague, cryptic, an embossed black card with gold lettering that simply read, "Exclusive event, Saturday, 1 p.m. by invitation only." At the bottom, there was no name, just a location, an upscale mansion tucked away in the Hollywood Hills. His manager mentioned it was one of Diddy's infamous parties, whispered about in hushed tones. Across the industry, the kind of party where no cameras were allowed, where secrecy was the currency, and where the night could open doors to unimaginable opportunities or shut them forever. "You should go," his manager had said. "It's where the deals happen, where the real movers and shakers decide who's in." Liam Payne wasn't sure. He'd heard the rumors, the freak-offs, the insane amounts of drugs, the activities that no one dared to explain in detail, but his curiosity won out. What was the worst that could happen? A room full of celebrities, champagne, and music? Maybe this was what he needed to revive his career. On Saturday night, Liam Payne arrived at the mansion dressed to impress. A white silk shirt, black pants, and an easy confidence he wore like armor. He pulled up to the sprawling estate, where security guarded the gates like watchful hawks. The party glowed inside, golden light spilling out of massive floor-to-ceiling windows. He adjusted his collar, gave his name to the valet, and stepped inside. The air was electric. Laughter, music, the clink of champagne glasses. Everyone wore masks, sleek and extravagant, adding an air of mystery to the scene. Celebrities, influencers, and moguls milled about, some already with that dazed, glassy-eyed look that only came after too much alcohol. Or something stronger. Liam Payne slipped on the mask handed to him by a server and tried to blend in. It wasn't long before he saw Diddy, standing at the center of it all, the gravitational pull of the room. He wore a silver mask adorned with black feathers, his sharp eyes peering out from beneath it. When their eyes met, Diddy smiled, clapping Liam Payne on the shoulder. "Liam," Diddy said, his voice smooth as silk. "Glad you made it. You're in for a real night. Just be open, my friend." Liam Payne nodded, unsure of what to say. He was struck by how casually Diddy spoke, as if they'd known each other for years. The older man's charisma was undeniable, but there was something beneath it, something calculating and unnerving. The night wore on. Guests drank, danced, and disappeared into side rooms for who knows what. Servers passed around trays of champagne and cocktails, but Liam Payne began to notice that some glasses were laced with something. A tiny, pinkish powder swirled into the liquid. A drug he later learned was called Tusi, or pink cocaine. It was the party drug of the elite, designed to lower inhibitions and blur boundaries. "Try it," a woman urged him. Her voice was syrupy and slow. "You'll feel free. Everyone here is doing it." He declined, but his discomfort grew. It wasn't just the drugs. It was the way people moved through the mansion, their masks hiding more than their faces. Conversations were hushed. Laughter was sharp, cutting through the air like a warning. And then Liam Payne saw it, the moment that changed everything. He was wandering through the house, hoping to find some fresh air, when he heard muffled voices coming from a half-closed door at the end of a hallway. At first, he wasn't going to stop. Then he heard a name he recognized, a famous TV host, someone beloved and family-friendly. Curiosity pulled him forward. The room beyond was dimly lit, flickering with candlelight. In the center stood the TV host, their hands tied behind their back. They looked dazed, their movements sluggish as though they'd been drugged. Around them stood three people, their masks concealing their faces. One of them was Diddy, unmistakable, even beneath the silver feathers. He held a small vial of pink powder and poured it onto a tray as the others watched. The host stumbled, mumbling incoherently. But Diddy's voice cut through the air, calm, controlled, commanding. "Relax," he said, his tone sharp yet strangely soothing. "This is how you show your loyalty. Just a taste and you'll see." Liam Payne's stomach turned as one of the masked figures grabbed the TV, host by the shoulders, forcing them to their knees. The tray was pushed in front of them, the pink powder glimmering in the faint light. A camera in the corner blinked red, silently capturing everything. Liam Payne took a step back, his heart pounding, but the floor creaked beneath his weight. The room went silent. Diddy's head snapped toward the door, his piercing gaze locking onto Liam Payne. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Diddy smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a chill down Liam Payne's spine. "Liam," he said, his voice low and steady, "you shouldn't be here." Liam Payne didn't wait to find out what would happen next. He turned and bolted down the hallway, his pulse thundering in his ears. He shoved past partygoers, his mask slipping off as he made his way to the exit. He didn't care about blending in anymore. He just needed to leave. Outside, he fumbled with his car keys, his hands shaking, and sped away from the mansion. He felt like he couldn't breathe, like he was suffocating under the weight of what he'd just seen. The weeks that followed were a blur. Liam Payne couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus. He felt like he was being watched, like someone was always 2 steps behind him. Cars lingered outside his house. He started getting strange calls. Nothing but static on the other end, followed by a click. He thought about going public, but how could he? Who would believe him? He was just a singer, while Diddy was untouchable. Every time he convinced himself to speak up, he thought about the camera, about how many other faces had probably been caught on tape, and how easily those recordings could be used to destroy lives. Years passed, but the fear never did. The fear never left him. He moved to London, then to South America, hoping to outrun whatever shadows were following him. But the night of the party haunted him. The TV host's glassy eyes, Diddy's smile, the camera. Liam Payne was staying at a luxury hotel in Buenos Aires, hoping to finally find some peace. He had started to believe that maybe he was safe, that maybe the past was behind him. Then, one night, while sitting on the balcony of his suite, he heard it. A voice, soft and familiar, cut through the still night air. "Take that. Take that." Liam Payne froze, his blood running cold. The voice came again, louder this time. "Take that. Take that." He turned, but the balcony was empty. The room was silent. And then he fell. The headlines the next day were grim. Former One Direction member Liam Payne dies in tragic fall from Buenos Aires hotel. The official story claimed he had possibly taken his own life, allegedly after using the same drug, Tusi, that he had seen the night of the party. But those who truly knew him weren't convinced. One thing was certain. Liam Payne had seen something that night at the mansion, something he was never supposed to see. I had no business being at a party like this. I wasn't famous. I wasn't rich. And I certainly wasn't part of Hollywood's inner circle. The only reason I even got in was because my friend, Jenna, had some connection to Diddy's assistant. She begged and pulled strings until somehow both of our names ended up on the guest list. When she told me about the invite, I couldn't believe it. "Diddy's throwing one of his legendary parties," Jenna said, practically shaking with excitement. "Everyone's going to be there. LeBron James, Rick Ross, you name it." It sounded like a dream, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to mingle with the elite. I didn't even hesitate. If I'd known what would happen, I would have ripped that invitation to shreds. The party was exactly as extravagant as I'd imagined. The mansion was massive, glowing under soft golden lights, with valet attendants dressed in crisp suits ushering guests inside. The air buzzed with excitement as we walked in. Everyone dressed in white, sipping champagne from crystal flutes. Jenna and I were nobodies in a sea of celebrities, but we blended in just enough not to raise any eyebrows. Inside, I felt like I was stepping into another world. The music was low and hypnotic, the kind that made your chest vibrate. Guests drifted through the rooms with easy grace, laughing, clinking glasses. I spotted LeBron James almost immediately, standing near the bar with a small group of people. He had his phone in his hand, casually recording the scene, like he was documenting the night. Then there was Diddy. He entered the room like a king, every head turning as he strode to the center. His energy was magnetic, his smile wide and disarming. He greeted LeBron James with a handshake, then glanced around the room as if assessing everyone present. For a brief moment, his eyes locked with mine. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. "New face," he said. Diddy said as he approached me. His voice was smooth, warm, but there was something in his gaze that felt heavy, predatory. "What's your name?" "Mia," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Welcome, Mia," he said, his smile widening. "Stick around tonight. You're going to see something special." I nodded, unsure of what to say. His words lingered in my mind as he walked away, joining LeBron James and the others near the bar. I watched as they exchanged a few words before disappearing down a side hallway. The night wore on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Diddy's words had meant something more. I told myself I was overthinking it, but when I noticed Jenna had disappeared with someone, I decided to explore. Curiosity led me down the same hallway Diddy and LeBron James had taken. At the end of it, I found a set of heavy double doors slightly ajar. From inside, I could hear faint murmurs and low laughter. I peeked through the gap, my heart pounding. The room was dimly lit, dark velvet drapes covering the walls. At the center was a circular platform. Around it stood about a dozen people, all dressed in white. Diddy was there, holding a bottle of baby oil. His movements were slow and deliberate as he poured it over 2 women standing on the platform. They were completely still, their faces blank, blindfolds covering their eyes. LeBron James stood off to the side, his phone raised, recording everything. His expression was neutral, almost detached, as if this were just another night. I couldn't understand why he was filming, or who he was filming for. The atmosphere in the room was suffocating, the air thick with something I couldn't explain. My gaze dropped to the floor, and that's when I saw it. Symbols, drawn in some kind of glowing substance. Intricate patterns that pulsed faintly under the dim light. Diddy began to speak, his voice low and rhythmic like a chant. The symbols on the floor seemed to ripple in response, and the shadows in the room started to move, stretching and curling unnaturally. My chest tightened as the two women on the platform swayed, their bodies moving in eerie unison, like puppets on invisible strings. The shadows grew darker, denser, shifting into shapes that didn't make sense. Tall, twisting figures that flickered in and out of existence. I stumbled back, my breath hitching in my throat. LeBron James glanced toward the door. His eyes met mine. His expression didn't change, but he raised a finger to his lips as if to say, "Stay quiet." Then everything went black. I woke up the next morning in my own bed, fully dressed. My head pounded and my mouth was dry. At first I thought I'd dreamed everything. But when I sat up, I saw the white dress I'd worn to the party, crumpled on the floor. The faint scent of baby oil still lingered on it. And then the memories came flooding back. Diddy, the symbols, the shadows, LeBron James' phone recording everything. After that, nothing. I couldn't remember how I'd gotten home, or what had happened after I blacked out. Jenna didn't have any answers either. When I called her, she just laughed it off, saying she'd left with a guy and figured I'd caught a ride home. "You were probably just drunk," she said. "You're lucky you didn't embarrass yourself in front of anyone important." But I knew I hadn't been drunk. Something had happened in that room, something I couldn't explain, and I needed to know what it was. Months passed, but I couldn't let it go. The memory of that night haunted me. I became obsessed, combing through social media and news sites for any clues about the party. But there was nothing. No photos, no mentions, not even a hint that it had ever happened. Finally, in a moment of desperation, I sent LeBron James a message on Instagram. I kept it short and vague. "Hi, I think we were both at Diddy's party a while ago. I think you were recording something. Do you still have that video? I just need to know what happened." I didn't expect him to reply, but a day later, I saw the notification. "LeBron James has sent you a message." My heart raced as I opened it. His response was short, just 6 words. "Words ain't no party like a Diddy party." Before I could reply, a second notification appeared. "LeBron James has blocked you." I stared at my screen, my stomach sinking. The message wasn't an answer. It was a warning. I'll never know what really happened that night, or why I blacked out. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still see those shifting shadows. I can still hear Diddy's voice, smooth, commanding. "You're going to see something special." And every now and then, I catch myself looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone's watching. Because one thing is clear, whatever I saw that night, I wasn't supposed to remember. The first whispers came from the kind of circles that don't make headlines. The assistants, the bodyguards, the staff who clean up after the rich and powerful. Rumors about what went down at Diddy's infamous freak-offs weren't exactly new. But what caught my attention this time was a name I never expected to hear. Steve Harv. The man was a household name, king of comedy, game show icon, the face of wholesome, family-friendly entertainment. The idea of him being tangled up in something as grotesque as the things people said happened at those parties felt unbelievable. But Hollywood has a way of hiding its darkness behind toothy smiles and expensive suits. It all started with one party. Steve Harv wasn't the type to go to Diddy's freak-offs, at least not publicly. His image was too clean, too perfect. But apparently, Diddy had personally invited him. "This is a different kind of celebration," Diddy reportedly told him. "A night to let loose, to be real." Steve hesitated at first. He had too much to lose. But Diddy had a way of making people feel like saying no wasn't an option. And so, on a quiet night, under the guise of networking, Steve slipped away to the private mansion where the party was being held. By all accounts, the party started like most of Diddy's infamous gatherings. Luxury everywhere you looked. Champagne flowed endlessly. Celebrities moved through the room in flawless white outfits, smiling, laughing, pretending everything was perfect. At first glance, it looked like a dream. But as the night went on, the atmosphere began to change. People quietly disappeared into side rooms. The music slowed, becoming almost hypnotic. The air grew heavier, charged with something no one spoke about, but everyone felt. Steve Harv wasn't used to scenes like this. He stayed on the sidelines, chatting briefly with familiar faces, making a few jokes to stay comfortable. Then Diddy approached. "Steve," he said calmly, his voice smooth but firm. "You're not here just to watch tonight." Steve forced a smile, though something inside him tightened. "I'm just here to unwind," he replied. Diddy leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Sometimes you have to let go," he said. "Just for one night." After a moment of hesitation, Steve followed him toward the back of the mansion. Behind the door, the energy felt different, darker. People moved strangely, almost in sync. No one spoke much. It felt like everyone was following rules that were never explained. Steve felt out of place, uncomfortable. "No one's judging you here," Diddy said quietly. "Don't think about it." The rest of the night came back to Steve in fragments. No clear images, just a lingering sense that something wasn't right. The next morning, he told himself it was all just exhaustion. Maybe stress, maybe too much celebration. But the feeling never left. Days later, a message appeared on his phone. Short, direct. "There are recordings. Staying quiet would be best for everyone." A link followed. Steve didn't even open it. He didn't need to. He knew whatever was on that footage could destroy everything. His career, his reputation, his legacy. From that moment on, everything changed. His smile felt practiced, his words carefully chosen. And every time he looked into a camera, the same thought crossed his mind. Is someone still watching? Because in Hollywood, there are nights you're never meant to talk about. And once you see too much, silence becomes the price. Steve Harv yelled. Diddy didn't miss a beat. "It is," he said calmly. "But you signed the NDA, Steve. You knew what you were walking into." "I didn't agree to be recorded," Steve snapped. Diddy chuckled, his tone unsettlingly relaxed. "You signed the NDA," he repeated. "And those recordings? They're worth more than you think. I suggest you calm down and let me handle it." But Steve couldn't calm down. He started to unravel, canceling appearances, pulling back from his usual confident public image. His family noticed, especially Lori, his stepdaughter. She asked what was wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to explain. Then Diddy called again. "Steve," he said lightly, almost friendly. "There's something you can do that'll make all of this disappear." "What are you talking about?" Steve asked, his voice shaking. "It's simple," Diddy replied. "Your stepdaughter, Lori. People like her don't go unnoticed. One introduction, one small favor." Steve felt his chest tighten. "You're out of your mind." "Think about it," Diddy continued, unfazed. "One conversation, and that footage? Gone. No one ever sees it. Your reputation stays clean." Steve hung up, sick to his stomach. But the calls didn't stop. And the longer he sat with the knowledge of what was on those recordings, the more it broke him down. Guilt, fear, desperation. It all piled up. Eventually, Steve made the call he swore he never would. Over the next few months, Lori was seen at several public events alongside Diddy and his son. The tabloids speculated, but no one knew the real reason behind it. Not then. But Diddy's empire was already starting to crack. The rumors that had followed him for years, illegal activity, exploitation, hidden operations, were finally catching up. Authorities had been building a case quietly. When they eventually raided one of his properties, they found what they needed, including the recordings. When the news broke, it was everywhere. Diddy was arrested on multiple serious charges. The footage became key evidence, proof of what had been happening, behind closed doors. Steve watched the coverage from his home, his hands trembling. He knew his own recording was out there too, sitting in an evidence locker, waiting. His name hadn't surfaced yet, but he knew it was only a matter of time. He tried to move forward, to pretend life was normal, but he couldn't escape that night. The choices he made, the silence he accepted. The moment he realized the cost was far greater than his reputation, Diddy was behind bars. But Steve Harv was trapped in a prison of his own making, because no matter how far he ran, no matter how deeply he buried the truth, he couldn't outrun the person he had become. And one day, standing in front of a mirror, all he could see was the shadow of the man caught on that tape.